Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Here. And now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Kadisha Contente, a sixth grade student from Mendoza School, will lead the pledge at the City Council meeting tonight. Kadisha has been a great addition to Mendoza. She came from Germany and adjusted really well. She comes to class with a great attitude and eagerness to learn. She has taken on many responsibilities, which include band and student council. She is a team player and shows respect in all that she does. She loves her dog, Lewis, and basketball. Thank you so much for being here, Kadisha, and thank you for your family for coming.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And you and your mom and brother don't have to hang out for the council meeting unless you really want to. Before we start, obviously, we're all concerned about the horrible events in San Bernardino. So we'd like to, our thoughts and prayers, obviously, with all the victims and their families and all the first responders and public safety officials that are involved in that ongoing issue. And we'd like to have a moment of silence just to honor those who've lost their lives and obviously those who are injured. Thank you. Are there any agenda changes?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And then we have the time of the evening where council members can speak, starting with Councilmember Patton.
Sure. At the last SANDAG meeting, it was pretty uneventful. I've been working with, or at least talking to the director of Caltrans about the holdups on Highway 75 going into Coronado for the last 3 months. Sometimes up to 30-minute wait to go 4 miles. If you've been on Coronado, the Strand lately, it's been a fast, clean ride. And I don't know if it's me talking to her or just by luck, but things have gotten better. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. I did want to announce that I was able to and honored to represent the city of Imperial Beach at the sinking of the Uribe 121 in Rosarito with another council member from Coronado. And we were received so warmly. Mike Osborne, president of the Chamber of Commerce, was with us for a delightful afternoon. The ties and relationships with the city of Rosarito is really just increasing by leaps and bounds. And we had the opportunity to meet with a woman who represents the patriots there in Rosarito, the people who are Americans and are living there. And what was really wonderful about it is that our women's club wants to do some things with the women's club in Imperial Beach, from what I understand from Josie Hamada. So it was just a wonderful afternoon in Rosarito. Again, we were treated like royalty. It was just wonderful, and the warm reception from the weather to the people was excellent. My next, I have quite a few items. There's a lot going on in the community. I just kind of wanted to touch and let everybody be aware. I'm sure you probably know about most of them, but I did want to announce them as well. The Chamber of Commerce, the Christmas Comes to IB, is this Saturday. Hope everybody will be able to attend that. The Navy dinner is being held this December 9th. That's for the seniors in the community, and I think this is about the 35th annual Navy dinner.
Is that a dinner or lunch?
They call it dinner, but it's at
Okay,
lunch. It's
okay.
at 11:30. So if you have a senior that you'd like to take to the dinner, the Navy does everything. And again, it's just a wonderful event. It's over at, well, it's at the Marina Vista Center. The Imperial Beach Methodist Church is hosting their posada on December 20th. They do have tickets for sale. If you've never been to a posada, it's very lovely. It's warm and inviting. It will be at the Boys and Girls Club. Another wonderful event that was held recently was the Feed the Kids. It was the 20th annual Feed the Kids. And I remember when Bill Hickson Sr. started that event. It was held at the Boys and Girls Club. I think they fed over 1,000 seniors and children, a multitude of volunteers. And then I had a conversation with the minister at Latter Rain Ministries. And 2 weeks ago, they gave out over 250 food baskets. So again, just to kind of bring it home that there are a lot of hungry people in Imperial Beach who need assistance. So if you have extra food and would like to contribute to any of the food banks and pantries here in IB, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Spriggs?
Since our last city council meeting, there have been no Metro JPA or League of California Cities meetings to report on. However, right after our last council meeting, we had a presentation by IB Resorts on the proposed hotel at the corner of Seacoast Drive and IB Boulevard. And I was really pleased to see a great turnout from this community at that presentation. This was not a city presentation. This was done by the private developers, just utilizing city space. And there were a lot of great questions asked by our community, and I think they, for the most part, had those questions answered. So the renderings of the hotel were very interesting. The architecture is very unique. Do we have those on the city website at all? Is it possible to do that so that the whole community can look at them?
You know, I believe we do have those, and we'll check with the developer. They have not submitted an application yet, but we can check and see if they're okay with us posting those. I don't know if they're going to make any modifications to them or what, but we'll check, and if not, we'll get at least what we have up there.
Okay, that'd be great. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bilbray. Thanks for all those updates. I won't repeat them since you guys did a great job. And just some unfortunate news. We've been calculating the days that the beaches have been closed this year, one of the driest and hottest years on record. And the south end of our beach has been closed from the end of Seacoast Drive, the U.S.-Mexico border, has been closed, I think, over 190 days, 11 closures. The main part of our beach has been closed over 50 days. The Silver Strand's been closed 30 days, and Coronado was closed actually 5 days this summer. So that just shows the fact that we've just got a lot of work to do. We've been, I was at Sandag Borders meeting and talking about that. We're going to be obviously working, we're having a meeting with Congressman Juan Vargas' staff on the 15th with Senator Feinstein's staff and other officials to talk about a strategy to work on this. And so we're going to continue to do this, but it just goes to show you why we have to push on this. And absolutely, obviously, those numbers are unacceptable. Just some interesting news. We had a really great El Nino workshop, and I was interviewed by a reporter from Mexico's main newspaper, Reforma, on lessons learned from Hurricane Patricia, and they cited Imperial Beach as a model for El Nino and coastal flooding planning. So I thought that was interesting, written up in Mexico's main daily. That's actually good, though, when we're talking to Mexican officials about problems on the Tijuana River, that they see Imperial Beach being listed in the main newspaper in Mexico. So anyway, we're on the radar, and I think just going to those events in Rosarito, thank you for doing that, are really important. This relationship with Mexico is really critical, but it's great to be friends, but we've got to get some work done as well. So anyway, and with that, I have nothing else. Mr. City Manager?
I do, and you know, leading into that about El Nino, one of the public works staff went out and took a video, and I think it's a little bit shocking. It's something we haven't seen before. If you look at this video, this is the Bayshore Bikeway, and that was looking east. This is looking west, and this is Pond 10 on the right and 10A on the left. And you can see as they move up, you can see the water just flowing over the Bayshore Bikeway. Now, Hank Levine's been with us for like a year and a half now, or I guess, or 25 anyway. Hank says he's never seen anything like this before. And so as we're preparing for sea level rise and for things like El Nino, look at the amount of water that's somewhat unprecedented, at least in the time that Hank's been here. So even though there's been some changes in the configuration of ponds 10 and 10A, we do need to be diligent in our preparations. And so I just really wanted to thank the City Council for taking this so seriously and giving the staff so much support in our preparations for really kind of a new day in storm drainage. And I know the City Council is working on a lot of strategies right now with storm drainage to try and accommodate some of these kinds of things that could happen in our community in the future. So anyway, I don't know if any of you have comments. Most of you have been here a lot longer than me, but that appears to be a lot of water flowing over top of the Bayshore Bikeway there.
I don't remember anything like that. You know, just remember, there's no surf. the surf was flat when this
That's right.
happened. So just for the public, these are during king tides. These are the highest tides of the year. They'll be having those right before Christmas. And then in January, Captain Stabenow, right? It's like 21st to the 22nd of 23rd of December, I think, right? The same kind of period in January. We can all get involved in monitoring this. If you want to go out and be part of the monitoring for king tides, there's a king tide project that's actually around the country, and you can hashtag your photos on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook with hashtag king tide. You can also do IB king tides, hashtag IB king tides, and actually those photos are really valuable. I tweeted some photos of the flooding on Seacoast Drive, and they were retweeted by the King Tides Project, and they and I hashtag it. So it's really important, and this is actually really interesting. So anyway.
Thank
Any other comments? Okay, now we have oh wait, we have public comments. Speaker.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Now we have the best part of the evening. Most awesome part of the evening. Okay, number 1.1, presentation of certificates to 2015 Fire Prevention Week poster contest winners. And Fire Chief French will introduce the item. And I know this is in your job description as the most awesome thing that you guys do all year.
Mayor, City Council, it's always a privilege to come up here and present the poster winners from the second grade classes for Fire Prevention Week. Every October, the fire department goes out to all the second grade classrooms at all those elementary schools and does a presentation. And what we do is we take the theme of Fire Prevention Week and we have the kids drop posters, and then we have a contest. And I'll have Tyra come up here and she'll do the presentation and talk a little bit more about the Fire Prevention Week poster contest.
Good evening. My name is Tyra Mo. I'm one of your engineer paramedics here with the fire department. And every October, we go out to all of the second grade classes in Imperial Beach, and we put on a fire safety presentation to all the students. And at the end, to make sure that they retain and are paying attention to what we are demonstrating and showing, we hold a poster contest, and the winner of the poster contest, our firefighter association will actually throw their classroom an ice cream party. So those are yet to come very soon. And we do that in partnership with North Island Credit Union. But tonight I would like to recognize the 4 students from the 4 local elementary schools and let them display their artwork. So from Bayside Elementary, we have Isabel Baker. You want to come up, sweetie? So this year's theme, which it's a national theme, is Hear the Beep While You Sleep, which is promoting working, functioning smoke detectors. From Imperial Beach Charter School, we have Chase. Okay, from Oneonta Elementary, we have Kira. All right, and from Central Elementary, we have Jasmine.
The mayor want to get it one, two.
We are so proud of you, and over the next month, we are going to throw your classroom an ice cream party, so be ready. Okay? Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. You did great.
And again, the parents aren't required to hang out for the whole meeting. You probably would be turned off for council meetings forever. So anyway. And I want to thank our firefighters and all the families and kids for coming out. Thank you so much. And Chris Brown, is Chris Brown here? Thank you so much for running such a great school system and for being here and supporting these types of partnerships. And now we have item 1.2 and the El Nino update, and Fire Chief French will give a report on the item.
Mayor, City Council, for your El Nino update for this week, we have Vanessa Garcia from SDG&E. But before she comes up here, I just wanted to say a little bit more about El Nino and preparation. Make sure you get your cell phones registered. Go to Alert San Diego. It's alertsandiego.org. Go to that and get it signed up. So if you're not at home, you don't have a landline, this is your only way of us getting the information out to you. So make sure you do that. Here's Vanessa with this.
I did that for me and my wife. I have to do it for my son now. Yeah, thank you it was great.
Mayor and Council, good evening. My name is Vanessa Garcia. I work at SDG&E as a Public Affairs Manager for our South Bay cities. I'm very delighted to be here today. El Nino is such a big topic at SDG&E right now, and we're very proud that we were invited to join you in your workshop. It was impressive, to say the least, to see hundreds and hundreds of people out on the topic. And it was similar to what Rosarito mentioned, something that I saw as novel compared to most of my counterparts throughout the county. So good job. I wanted to let you know on El Nino, SDG&E has been working with our regional field offices to increase our inventory of equipment, such as fuses and power poles, sandbags, plastic sheeting, and other major storm preventative measures. We are working with each field office to have floodwater removal equipment on hand, and we're going to be having that to help remove water in our underground facilities as needed. Additional SDG&E crews are being advised to complete assessments of all facilities to look at flooding, sinkholes, landslides, and land erosion. We're going to be staging equipment at each of our field offices, additional equipment, and we'll be having additional field personnel mobilized should more help be required. We're going to be drawing upon our local contractors to provide that kind of assistance. So I'll be working with your team, Dean, I believe, more routinely to provide updated messages as they come to the forefront on our end. But we are having regular weekly meetings, and I know your team is working diligently. So thank you, and please let me know if I can provide any other assistance.
Thank you very much. Any questions or?
Where is the closest field office? So you're staging equipment. How close is that to the city of Imperial Beach?
The field office for South Bay Division of SDG&E is actually Metro, so that's downtown.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't really have a question of you, but I did want to ask, maybe the mayor is the most well-informed person, but there may be others in the audience. Just for the date of the next King Tides, the dates, when we're expecting the next coastal flooding to be most likely? It's December.
I think it's 21st to the 23rd. Pretty sure. Okay, it's right before Christmas.
Just so we have that kind of like on the record and we can keep that in everybody's mind.
Yeah, what's interesting is we got some big surf coming this weekend. It's a 4 to 6 foot, maybe 5 to 7 foot, but it's been 10 to 15 foot up in San Francisco. And there's not any storms moving. So we got a lot of surf on top for the next 2 weeks, and that's without really any major storms. So it should be interesting to see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all your support. Okay, now on to the real fun stuff. All right, consent calendar items 2.1 to 2.8. I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items numbers 2.1 through 2.8. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, all good? Good. So now we have the ordinances section of the evening. We have first reading 3.1, introduction of ordinance 2015-1154, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending section 4.60.010 of chapter 4.60, medical marijuana distribution facilities related to the cultivation of medical marijuana. City Attorney Lyon will give a report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor. So on October 9th, 2015, Governor Brown signed a set of new bills into law that will take effect on January 1, 2016. And it's a set of regulations related to the commercial distribution of medical marijuana. And essentially, it sets up a state licensing scheme related to cultivation, manufacture, transportation, storage, distribution, and sale of medical marijuana. And the new laws have this provision that require local jurisdictions, if you want to have any say in the regulation of cultivation of marijuana, that you have those regulations in effect by March 1, 2016. So when these new laws were passed, staff reviewed our current ordinance, and our current ordinance does not prohibit 3 or less from gathering to cultivate, but it doesn't have explicit definition of cultivation or explicit regulations related to cultivation. And so staff is proposing the attached ordinance, which will explicitly define cultivation to be the same as what these new set of laws define cultivation as. It will also provide for the allowance for primary caregivers and qualified patients to continue to cultivate medical marijuana that's already in our ordinance, but it now mirrors the state exception for primary caregivers and qualified patients to cultivate marijuana. And lastly, it will clearly prohibit commercial cultivation of marijuana because these state regulations are set up, they're intended to allow the commercial aspects of medical marijuana, and the way our ordinance is set up right now, there is no intent to have large-scale commercial cultivation of marijuana. So we're just clearly defining our regulations so that that's explicit. And when these new laws go into effect for the state, the city's local ordinance will be in compliance with that. So if you have any questions, the city manager and the assistant city manager and myself are all available if you have any questions related to the proposed ordinance.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, great. Yes, Councilmember Spriggs.
So just so that I understand this correctly, if we don't act, the state law will then govern marijuana cultivation, commercial cultivation in Imperial Beach, but only commercial cultivation?
Well,
will it affect other things as well if we don't act?
It will affect all cultivation. So essentially, what's happening with these state regulations is it doesn't distinguish between primary caregivers, qualified patients. It's talking about any person that wants to cultivate marijuana. And so they are going to start issuing licenses. As long as a local jurisdiction doesn't have any prohibitions related to cultivation, they will start issuing licenses. And the licenses don't require you to be a qualified patient or a primary caregiver. It can be anyone. And the licenses, the smallest license is to cultivate up to 5,000 square feet. And the only There are some regulations about if you are going to be a commercial cultivator, you have to send it to testing, etc. But essentially, they will start issuing licenses up to, you know, the minimum would be 5,000 square feet. The maximum is you can have for a license is 4 acres to cultivate on. So that's the scenario if the city of IB doesn't approve an ordinance that's explicit, they could issue these kinds of licenses, and they would be the only one that regulate the cultivation.
So the state law doesn't apply to cities that already have their own medical marijuana cultivation laws in effect.
Well, what the state law says is they will only issue licenses. First, you have to comply with local law. And if you can show them you're in compliance with local law, then they'll issue you the state license. So essentially, if a city has a prohibition or something related to cultivation of marijuana, they're going to look at that and say, that local agency prohibits it. We're not even going to consider a state license for you. But if they look at the local jurisdiction and say, oh, they do allow it, and these are the regulations they allow, are you in compliance with those? Okay, now we'll issue you your state license.
Okay, that's exactly what I was getting at.
Sure.
Would our action to prohibit
Mm-hmm.
be respected? I mean, is that written into the law that is respected, and there won't be
Absolutely.
any further action by the state overriding our local ordinance?
Could they change state law? They could, but the way the current law is written, it was written to respect local jurisdictions' decisions on medical marijuana dispensaries, cultivation, you name it. So that's the way the current law is written. There's nothing to say they won't, you know, change it down the road, or there won't be an initiative related to recreational use.
Thank you very much. That's what I was interested in, is the way the current law is written.
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't see any other things. All right.
I would just like to state that, you know, with the California League of Cities, one of the things that they're always stressing is to maintain local control. So if we want to maintain that local control, then this is really the route to go. We all know this landscape is changing all the time. So yes, you know, the state may want to do something else. My question is, you know, let's consider, would there be an opportunity for somebody to come in if we didn't do something? Is there a spot in Imperial Beach where this would, you know, somebody could have a 5,000 square foot commercial grow?
Well, 5,000 is the minimum size.
That's the minimum. So they could do less than that, but I'll defer to the assistant city manager.
If we didn't act on it.
The minimum size was 5,000 feet. They could do that.
They could do less. That's the minimum. Like the type 1 license says you're allowed to grow up to 5,000 square feet. 5,000 under. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the next levels go up higher and higher until you get to 4 acres.
Okay. You probably don't need to answer that question then. So are there any cities that have not done this? And I know that there's some issues that go along with these commercial grows, which is another reason that we would maybe consider.
So locally here in San Diego County, what I've been able to find so far is that San Diego County is the only jurisdiction that allows and regulates dispensaries. Cultivation laws, I haven't seen what their draft cultivation laws are. Unfortunately, these laws were adopted in October, and for whatever reason on cultivation, they put this March 1 deadline. So all of the cities, local cities right now, are going through the same process as the city of Imperial Beach. They might be on a little bit different timelines because maybe they had 2 regular meetings in December and 2 in January, whereas this city has 1 in December and 1 in January. But I did reach out to other local city attorneys from the cities, and it appeared that almost all the jurisdictions were going in the same direction, although theirs may be more of a complete prohibition and they didn't carve out the allowance like the city of Imperial Beach has done for the qualified patients and primary caregivers. So
when you did that research, Jennifer, was most of the compelling reasons was again to maintain that local control?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So City Clerk Hall will read the title of ordinance number 2015-1154.
Ordinance number 2015-1154, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending Section 4.60.010 of Chapter 4.60, Medical Marijuana Distribution Facilities related to the cultivation of medical marijuana.
Great. I would like to entertain a motion to introduce ordinance number 2015-1154 by title only, waive the reading of the entire ordinance, and schedule the second reading adoption of the ordinance on January 20th, 2016. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. And now we have report 5.1, adoption of resolution number 2015-7653, approving the Imperial Beach Business Improvement District annual report for FY15, approving the budget for FY16, identification of a date to conduct a public hearing to consider levying an assessment for FY16. City Manager Hall will give a report on the item.
Mayor and Council, as you know, in 1996, the City Council took action to adopt an ordinance that created the Business Improvement District for the City of Imperial Beach. What you have before you tonight is the first step of a two-step process. And the first step is that the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District will provide to you a list of accomplishments or an annual report that they have completed this year. And then they have also presented to you in your packet a proposed budget. The role of the City Council is to review that budget to ensure that the funds are being spent in the manner that is included in the ordinance and subsequent resolutions. And staff has reviewed the proposed budget, and it would appear to us that those expenditures are consistent with the provisions of the ordinance and the supporting resolutions. The other item that you need to do, the second step in the process, would be to establish a date for a public hearing to assess the levy in the Business Improvement District, and staff in the resolution has proposed a date of January 20th, 2016 to hold that public hearing. And so again, tonight, the first step in the process is for the Business Improvement District to provide you with an annual report of what they've done and the budget, and then we will have the public hearing at a subsequent date as proposed by staff, January 20th. Mike Osborne, who is, maybe I should explain a little bit why we have the chamber.
I just asked you a question.
Yes, please.
Just to make sure in terms of process, are these part of the, is this different than the public comment period, or is this part of the report? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is before the public speaker, if people want to speak on this. Okay,
Correct.
Sorry.
Not a problem. In subsequent resolutions that the City Council adopted, the City Council recognizes the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District as the association. We recognize them as one entity in terms of the BID. And so who we have here tonight is the President of the Chamber of Commerce, who is Mr. Mike Osborne. We also have the Chair of the Business Improvement District, Joanne Barrows, and then also are you the treasurer or the second? Okay, the treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Jim Mickelson. I think all of you are associated with them, and we'll just turn it over to them for their annual report and presentation of the budget.
Mayor, council people, and city workers. Mike Osborne, President of the Chamber of Commerce for Imperial Beach. Councilman Bragg, I really enjoyed Rosarito. Looking forward to working with them in the future. We are here to present the BID budget to the city. There have been missteps this past year. We've made changes, added protections, open disclosure, and focused oversight to move forward. And our actions have been taken with the advice of legal counsel. We look forward to a solid relationship with our members, local business in the city of Imperial Beach. The BID came together at a BID meeting on October 21st. They approved the budget for this year and going forward till end of June of next year. And then the chamber got together at a board meeting and actually approved what the BID board, the committee had actually approved. So, so what we've got basically with membership and leadership, we've had monthly meetings, improved communications, clarity of organization. and networking with San Diego City business associations and trying to build a BID brand. Sorry. I'm trying to keep it short because I know everybody wants to go. Special events and sponsorship. We've had the Taste IB in March, Wine Garden at the Symphony by the Sea, Sun Sea Festival, sponsors Sun Sea Festival, 4th of July, the fireworks and the DJ, and different things with bands. City beautification. We've had the Christmas decorations, continue with the paint the box and doing the flags down the main thoroughfares. Thank you, Chief. And if you can get us a list of the people that are involved every time, we can actually give you acknowledgement letters. So, and then tourism, basically regional tourist flyer, and we've also done the San Diego Tourism magazine. So they've been active, the BID has, and we look forward to better oversight by the chamber and going forward, just basically having better times down the road. So I'll turn it over to Jim.
Mayor, council members, I'm happy to be here today to present to you our budget for the Business Improvement District for the year 2015-2016. It's in your packet there. We go through a multi-step process. We first started out this year with a workshop in which we invited all bid assessees to attend here at the community room in the city, and had a lively meeting and had a lot of input, and from that developed a budget, which we brought back to our bid committee meeting later in the month of October. Our bid committee is comprised of all bid assessees who wish to attend and other members of the chamber. Now, in our bid committee, when they review actions and vote on actions, only the bid assessees vote and make recommendations out of our bid committee to our chamber board. The chamber board acts as an oversight board, as the other party to the contract with the city regarding the Business Improvement District. And in our October meeting, our board approved the budget that was recommended out of the bid committee in October. And as part of the final step, we bring it before you today. So it's gone through an extensive process. Our budget represents a new direction for us. It represents what we call a four corners approach to the bid funds. Previously, in previous years, prior to the opening of the hotel, a lot of our attention was always paid to Seacoast. Now with Seacoast taking off on its own, we're able to turn our attentions to the gateway areas of the city along 13th at Palm Avenue and Imperial Beach Boulevard this year. And you'll see some items which Joanne Barrows will explain to you constitutes a move towards expanding to the four corners. Our funds are safeguarded. We maintain our funds in two accounts. We have our chamber account and our Business Improvement District account. We have taken safeguards to prevent any inappropriate draws. We have computerized checks. We have oversight. We have double censure standards. We're not worried about any mishaps with our funds in the future. Finally, we ask you to approve the resolution approving our budget and setting a public hearing.
Thank you very much. John?
Mayor, City Council, where are we going? The answer, excuse me, where are we going? The answer is forward. The BID is taking on a new life, a new persona, and most importantly, a step in a positive direction. This past weekend, we initiated a campaign within the district to participate as a city in Small Business Saturday. The response to participate via email, we received 2 responses. So we hit the streets. With promotional materials, we stopped and talked to businesses. And in the end, we ended up with 48 local businesses. This is the direction we are going. Business-oriented programs that truly promote the district. There will be another one, small business, another one in about 6 months. Certified folders. This is moving forward. We are going to get this done. We have, sorry, I've got a lot of notes here. We have 155,000 brochures to be distributed. San Diego County Super Cities, San Diego International Visitor Centers, San Diego International Airport, 6 locations, California Welcome Center, Oceanside, California Welcome Center, Alpine, Buena Park, and Barstow. This is a project that has been kind of lagging for a few years. And if you see on the budget, it was $8,000 to finish it. And so this is priority. So this is really important. And Meet the Business is having like a taste of IB on 13th and Palm and 13th and IB Boulevard. Also, we belong to the San Diego Tourism Membership, and we're going to have a free website added to their website through them. And so we're going to get together with all the businesses and find out what they would like to go on it. And the decorations for Christmas and new flags, a better grade. We do have flags, but they're starting to fray and stuff. So better grade flags and all the events that you guys have listed. That's really all I have to say.
Good. Before we get into council questions, do we have any public comment cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
But I can tell you you're going to Wyoming because this looks like Wyoming, and I know Wyoming. So. Except this is like July.
So we'll start with Councilmember Patton.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Sometimes in life, it takes hitting a few bumps, roadblocks, to get a wake-up call. And obviously, you know, you hit a couple, but I like the what's come out of it. And sometimes what comes out of that is way better. And what I'm seeing, the Four Corners approach, great. I think that's amazing. Who came up with that? Was that collective or?
I think it was actually feedback we got from some of the city and all that.
Yeah, that's
just incorporating what we've heard from
great.
the street and from the city.
Super. And obviously the safeguarded funds. I'm sure you've double and triple checked those.
We came up with that already.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And then Joanna, I was going to ask you, where are you going? And then you bring the slide up. You're buzzkill. Like, I was going to ask that question. Like, what's going on? So I like a new life. You know, the Small Business Saturday. You know, and of course, you know, sometimes you get 2 people that come out, and just like all of the politicians up here, we got up here because we walked the streets. And sometimes getting out there and walking the streets, you get to meet the people, and they see a face, not just a flyer, which is, you know, and you got what, 48 businesses. That's super. And Meet the Business is good. And then 150,000 brochures. Did I hear that right?
155.
155. And that's been, like you said, long overdue.
Yes, it is.
And the fact that you put it all the way in Barstow. I've been to Barstow once, and everybody stops there. Everybody going to Vegas stops there. So, you know, we'll get a lot of traffic. So thanks for what you're doing. I know you're better now than you were. And that's all we can ask for. Keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I ask you guys any questions, I wanted to ask our city attorney a question having to do with, you know, exactly what is our role. It's kind of, I think this is the 5th budget cycle that I've been on the council. And there are a lot of things to try to understand in terms of the history and the roles and relationships between the bid and the chamber, et cetera. But over all of that is the question of what is the city council's role in approving the budget. Normally, when a body has budget approval responsibility, they have some responsibility for the use of the funds, for receiving some sort of accounting on how the funds were used before they approve it going forward. They have a fiduciary relationship, in other words, with the organization that's requesting the funding. But as I have tried to learn from the over the years, it doesn't appear that we have that responsibility in exercising this review process and setting the stage for the hearing next meeting. Could you comment a little bit on whether we are fiduciaries that really need to dive into the budget details, or are we more serving a ministerial function of cursory review as opposed to in-depth review?
Right. So there's two things that make up the bid. There's the original law related to creating the bid, and so that law sets forth the annual review by the City Council of the budget. And then there's the agreement that the cities entered into with the bid association / Chamber of Commerce. So both the law and the agreement, there's nothing in them that impose a fiduciary duty on the City Council's review. It does provide that the council reviews it annually and that the council can suggest modifications prior to setting that public hearing. But it is clear with the current agreement and the arrangement that the council doesn't get involved in the day-to-day specifics. As long as the budget is proposing to spend money on the functions that the bid was originally created for, that's where the review is. And so it is more of a ministerial review, and they're supposed to submit their actuals to show that they expended monies the way the budget said, and that's what they've continued to do each year.
I'm glad to hear that because I think that'll make this a lot shorter than it otherwise would have been. This discussion tonight on the bid budget proposal. I'm also really delighted to hear about your plans. And one of the questions that I was going to ask is whether the bid assessment monies are separate from the chamber monies, kept in a separate account, et cetera. And you've already answered that question. That's a great answer, that they are indeed separate. So I guess then the only question that I would have would be to confirm from city staff and city attorney that the budget proposals, especially those going forward, are within the 5 purposes of the act. I honestly am not sure it's appropriate to go into a lot more detailed questions than that, unless we really do want to associate ourselves with how the monies are actually spent in fact. And as non-fiduciaries, I don't think we should. I also think that this is all the more sensitive because of the issues that you all have alluded to that have happened in the past, that you're taking steps to make sure don't happen again. The loss of those funds, the sort of common sense Joe public person or Jane public person would say, well, city council needs to really get a lot of assurances, dive into this, et cetera, et cetera. But if we don't really have that, that's why I was asking the question about the fiduciary responsibility. If we don't really have that responsibility, we don't have that relationship as safeguards, really, of these funds. They're really assessment funds, and we're essentially overseeing the transfer of them pursuant to the ordinance. Then I think we should be very clear about what our role is and the kinds of things we get into, or we can find ourselves getting wrapped up in chamber bid policy questions, chamber bid financial management questions, that sort of thing. And if we're not fiduciaries, we should be very careful that we don't get entangled in those kinds of issues. So I'm glad to hear that the funds are separate. If they weren't, that would kind of help get more entangled in what's going to happen then with these assessment funds that we do have some responsibility to pass on to you guys. So I just wanted to make those comments because I think that's we need to be clear about what our role in relationship is, especially in light of what's happened in the last year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown, did you want to respond?
Yeah,
There was a question.
Yeah, due to the circumstances that you had referred to, probably more so than what we have done the last couple of years, we dived pretty deep into the budget with the representation from the Chamber and the BID to make sure that all of the proposed items in the budget were consistent with the 5 or 6 items that you had mentioned that are required to spend the money. The other thing we did is we asked them to provide us with a much more detailed and thorough audit of last year's expenditures, again, given those circumstances. They did receive a clean audit. The BID funds received a very clean audit, and they were spent according to the budget. And we also asked the auditor to be very clear about what our relationship is with them, a forensic audit, if you will. And so we were very happy to review the audit and the findings that the independent auditor came up with. And we did, I believe, pay a lot more attention, and I think we went line by line. We had a meeting, went line by line to make sure that each item in the budget could fit into one of those categories. That's not to say we maybe shouldn't do that in the future, but we certainly paid more attention to it this year than we have in the past.
Well, that's exactly why I asked you that question, because I think if you've done that as city staff, then and we as council members, the policy board, are not in a fiduciary relationship, then we don't need to ask line by line questions. And I'm satisfied with that response. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you answered the question, so move on. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for the untold hours that you have spent, the angst and nervousness in preparing a budget, and wondering, is this what people want to see? Are we doing this right? Undergoing an audit and all that entails. I think it shows a great amount of courage and bravery to stand here and have your entire infrastructure financially looked over line item by line item. So thank you for that. I did want to address the audit. You had a very good audit. Only one thing was a little disturbing to me. There was some missing minutes in a couple of meetings. It appeared that the minutes for the May 27th and May 28th BID meetings were not found. I'm sure that they're in that office somewhere. And I know that I spoke with your office administrator, Candy Unger, and she was, really taking that to heart. I know that she took the audit very seriously, as did each of your board members. And I have spent a great deal of time with each and every one of you. And again, appreciate, it seems like the BID has turned a new corner. I'm really pleased with this idea of getting back to your roots, getting back to what a BID is and what a Chamber of Commerce is. Mike, you and I had the opportunity to discuss that in Rosarito as well. Getting back to just the nuts and bolts, the day-to-day program of work that a chamber does is so important. And I think that's one of the reasons why you had 48 businesses come forward in your Small Business Saturday after you approached them. So like Councilmember Patton stated, it's getting your feet on the ground and getting out there and meeting with each one of them. I would like to remind you that next year is your 20th anniversary of your Business Improvement District. So I would be expecting lots of banners about that. 20, having a Business Improvement District for 20 years in this day and age is not easy. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on your audit, and we really do look forward to your presence in this community and at our council meetings and the relationship that we are so wanting to forge with your organization.
Thank you.
thank you for being here very much.
Great. Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Lorini. I want to thank all of you for coming here and all the work that you put into this. I echo my colleagues' comments, and this reflects a lot of work. I know you guys did a lot of work. You work with the city staff. It's great to have the audit in public. You know, I run a nonprofit. We do an audit every year. This wasn't a super clean audit. There were some findings. So the whole point of the findings are to really show that what you have to improve for next year. So hopefully next year none of these issues will be there because you'll have learned from this. The same thing happens with the organization I run. You know, you have a couple findings and you make a commitment to next year not doing that. So that's great. I'm really, again, you went out to the community and you got feedback and you changed your strategy. That's learning. And so I think we all appreciate that. And I like where you're going, especially when it involves beautiful mountains. So you're gonna go, but means you go a lot higher. So, and go to the next level. So that's where I can see where you're going, and we really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to all working with you. And I think the idea of working with really focusing on small businesses and with the heart and soul of our community is awesome. And I think I can see the chamber really changing and growing and getting a lot more diverse younger members, and I think that's really exciting. So it's not supposed to be easy. And we appreciate all the work you're doing, all the work you're doing for IB. So with that, I have no other.
Yeah, Mayor, in the staff report, there was one ancillary request, and that is without dissent of the city council, we would provide the funds that we've been holding to the BID. Without dissent of the council, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2015-7653 and direct the city clerk to take the necessary actions to hold a public hearing on January 20th, 2016 to consider adoption of the annual levy for the Business Improvement District.
And just for the record, there was a corrected resolution 2015-7653 so that council would be approving that one. That was part of the last minute info.
Did I miss that? It's right here?
I believe it was sent
right,
out last
right,
week.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Do I have to reread that then, or? Okay.
No,
All
it would be the
Please
same.
vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
But you make it so fun. Item 5.2, fiscal year 2015 audit. Administrative Service Director Bradley will give a report on the item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to make this as entertaining as possible, but it is an audit, by the way. So I'm pleased to present the results from the fiscal year 2015 audit, and the actions I'm looking for from Council is to receive and file the audit. The general fund, which is our major operating fund, had a net revenue of a positive $127,000. That's only about 0.7% of our revenue. However, it was positive, and that's where we want to be. So we operate in that thin margin, and we met it this year. So I'm real pleased about that. The sewer fund did have a net revenue. Remember, net revenue is your total revenue minus your actual revenues minus your expenses. But the net revenue for the sewer was actually a negative $62,000. We expected that, and is actually a little bit higher in the prior years. It is improving. Our revenues are increasing. And this is why that was about 1.2% of the revenues. And this is why it has facilitated the sewer rate study that we're undergoing. And so these are the type of things we'll look at because it's not something we want to continue. Other government funds were balanced. The fund balances came in as budgeted. There was no surprises there. And one of the most important things is this audit came in clean. There were no internal control findings. You just discussed this with the BID. And we also cleared off the past findings that the city had had. So, and I think this is a real testament, and I'm real thankful for the entire city staff and for my financial staff. We all work together to improve the financial governance, and this is a result of that. I'm going to go in just a little detail. I won't take too long, but I do want to talk about another aspect of financial governance, and that's actual versus budget. And right here I'm looking at the citywide revenue, and if you look at the very top, you'll see that the actual versus the budget, we came in just over, and this is citywide, not just general funds. So within 1%, and that's really where you want to be. Obviously you want to be a little bit higher than you budgeted. And like I said, there's some areas down here where we came in a little bit under gas tax. Well, we do know that gas prices went down and that did affect us a little bit. The general fund, though, as you see, we came in right on budget. And that's, like I said, one of our major operating funds. Once again, continuing with budget versus actual, this is citywide expenses. So once again, at the very top is the entire city. You see, well, we came in quite a bit lower. Once again, that's the right side of the equation you want to be on. But that's quite a bit lower. What has happened is we budget really for, and most of that is directly related to our capital projects. Okay, we budget really on a 2-year capital project cycle, and this is a single year budget to actual you're looking at. And so a lot of those projects that didn't get completed that year are being carried over into the next budget cycle. And that was all addressed during the budgeting process. So that's where, if you go through these detail, you see the major difference between our actuals and budget. If you look over here at the general fund, and I'll just go to the next slide because this is the details of the general fund, we came in just right under, which is where you want to be, about 2 percentage points below the budget. And once again, our net revenue was just above, or just about a positive 127,000. So now I'm going to move from budgeting and look at our general fund, our fund balances. And I'll start first with our general fund, because this is our major operating fund. We have several assigned balances. As you're aware, when we were doing our budgeting, the top is our unassigned fund balance. And you can see that it did increase from 5.9 million to 6.4. And that came, once again, I mentioned, we had a positive net revenue of 127,000. And then we also had 389,000, which flowed through here from the successor agency loan repayment. If you recall, down here you see we received 1.1 million as part of the obligation that the successor agency has to the city of Imperial Beach, and 389,000 of that rolled through to the unassigned fund balance. Our unassigned fund balance right now is about 35% of our general fund expenditures. Council has asked that to be between 30 and 40%, so we're right on target. The other fund balance that actually increased was our public safety communications. This is for the regional communication system that we are going to be obligated to purchase. Council, I talked to you about this during the year. You said, yes, let's go ahead and get this fully funded. So of that SA loan repayment that I mentioned earlier, we fully funded this, and we are ready now. I'm not exactly sure when that will come due, but we know it is coming due. It's nice to know we have the money available for it. Once again, we still have 1.4 million owed to us from the successor agency. I'm expecting in June a large portion of that to come in. Some other funds that we have, other governmental funds, is our housing authority. As I mentioned, once again, the successor loan repayment per the Redevelopment Dissolution Acts, we were required to take 20% of that loan repayment and put it in our housing fund. And that's why you see this increase by it increased over here by cash inflow of 229,000. So when we get another payment in June, again, 20% of that will go into this housing fund. The 2010 bond funds, you see we have 5.3 million as our fund balance. During the course of fiscal year 15, we spent about 600,000 on the 9th and Palm, Bikeway Village, and Pier South projects. During 2016, and probably carrying over into 2017, the balance of this 5.3 million is scheduled to be spent on 9th and Palm, Bikeway Village, and alleys. That will exhaust those funds with those projects. Gas tax and Transnet, this is what we spend to revitalize and build our streets and infrastructure. Had a lot of activity, about $1.9 million during the course of the year spent. These are all the projects, so there's a lot going on. Public Works was very busy. And we still have, as you see, a sizable balance here. But as you recall, during the budgeting process, we have started to allocate those funds to the specific projects that are in our next 2-year budget cycle. Sewer fund, we spent about $1 million on capital during the course of the year. And again, that balance is scheduled in our 2-year CIP to be spent, portion of it. These are our final funds. These are internal service funds. I just wanted to list them out so you know that they are there and they are available. Our vehicle replacement fund really stayed flat, but in the time during the course of the year, we were able to add 4 brand new vehicles to our fleet. which was a really nice upgrade. Technology, that fund is still pretty healthy. We were able to install a new phone system, which has really taken us to the next level. I'm really pleased about. We improved our infrastructure, and then also we got the entire city on Office 365. So those are some techie things, but we're really excited about them. Facility maintenance, we were able to do some improvements here at City Hall. And then finally, I really want to be a little more specific on our risk management fund, because this is a really critical fund for the city because we are self-insured. And when I talk about self-insured, I'm talking about workers' compensation and general liability. So I show 1.45 million, and that's unassigned, okay? That's unassigned fund balance sitting here. We really have about $3 million in cash in this fund, but I need to reserve funds for workers' comp claims we have and workers' comp claims we don't know yet we have. You know, things can happen, they just have not yet been reported. So based on the actuarials, we have $1 million sitting aside just in case for those things. We also have about $500,000 sitting aside for general liability claims I know about, which are very small. We've been very fortunate here at the City of IB. My predecessors laugh at me. They're like, oh, you know, what do you do? You know, but we've been very, very fortunate. But we do have some money set aside just in case there's some claims out there that have not yet been reported. So then that again leaves the $1.4 million. And so I just wanted you to know this fund is quite healthy, and we have a reserve set aside. So that really sums up all our various fund balances. Once again, I'm very pleased. They all came in on budget, a little bit better of net revenue, and I think we're in a really solid position moving forward. So now I want to move to this whole issue that's been brought up. Councilmember Bragg, I know you discussed it a little bit about the net pension liability or the GASB 68 requirements. I want to be clear that this liability is not new. We've always had this liability. It's changed, and it's always been reported in our financial, in our audit, but it's been in the notes section. This new GASB requirement requires us to put it into the financial statements. And since we are a city with zero, in essence, zero liability, we don't have any debt, this becomes on our financial statement our largest item of debt. Okay. So what you see here is the entire bar represents what the net pension liability is. These are obligations that we've already made to our city employees, retired and or current, and it's based on the CalPERS pension program that we're in. Remember, it's a defined benefit plan, meaning those benefits down in the future are hard to know exactly what dollar amount those are, as opposed to a defined contribution plan like a 401k. You put in money, you know what it is. And this is what's creating the liability for us, because it's a little uncertain. Anyway, we are pretty heavily funded, actually. We have about an 85% funded ratio based on the actuarials. But right now, we now have about a $6 million unfunded liability. Meaning, based on the actuarial, we should have about $36 million in our trust. We have 31 million. Okay, seems like a lot, but and this is something I think I want to come back to you and have further discussions on strategies on how to address this. I don't know if this is really where I want to do this, but I do want to give you some perspective so that maybe you can sleep a little better at night. If we look at the models that they give us in the actuarial, there's one chart that not a lot of people talk about, and I've honed right in on it. But they use a interest rate. So what they're saying is the money you have invested, we assume it's going to get 7.5%, and that's how we're going to build this liability model. You know, 7.5% is pretty conservative, but that's what they use, and they have to be conservative. But they also have a chart in there that says, well, if we just do 1% better, 8.5%, which isn't a far reach, your unfunded or net pension liability drops by about 70% down to 1.7 million. So I'm not saying we should be aggressive and say we're going to get the 8.5%, but it's not unrealistic. You know, the Standard & Poor's 500 typically over long periods of time earns about 10%. So this is still conservative. So when we come back and have this discussion about, well, how do we want to fund this unfunded liability, and I do think we should address it, the absolute dollar amount is not absolute. It's not absolute. So we'll have that discussion and make some determination. But this helps me at night, so I don't know if it helps you. But anyway, at that, I will open it up to questions from the council.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Bradley, I can just say great job. It's not only that our city finances look like they're in very good shape, but it's also you're very good at showing that and presenting it, and in a way that is understandable, and that's really appreciated. It hasn't always been the case. I had three quick questions. One, just starting from this most recent chart that's right in front of us right now, the 7.5% model versus the 8.5% model. These are yields, right, on the pension balance, expected returns.
Correct.
To right. And in today's financial markets, I wouldn't think we would be talking about plus 1%, but more like minus 1 or 2%. Can you comment a little bit about what our actuals are as opposed to the model in terms of yields?
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind that CalPERS has a more flexible investment strategy by law than the city does. The city is bound to very limited investments. CalPERS can go out and be more aggressive. So 7.5% is actually over the last 2 years about what they have received. Last year they got about 2%. The year before that they had about 13%. So you average that out, right? That's the volatility, and it's really tough to sit here and say, well, this is what your actual unfunded net, liability is, and this is what's going on in your financial statements. To be honest, I look at it a little bit, well, that's just this point in time.
Right.
Like I said, when I went to grad school and we did a lot of modeling and discussing about return on net present value and IRR, and we would always hone in on the S&P 500 as that kind of like gold standard of long-term investment. And if you look at long-term, 30, 40, 50 years, the stock market will get you about 10%. I know we've had some ups and downs, but in the long term, and that's what's really nice about CalPERS, they have a long-term outlook because they always have people coming in and going out. It's not like if it's just your personal 401k. As the older you get, the more conservative you have to get. They don't have to do that because they always have younger people coming into the system, right. And so they're able to be more aggressive. And so I hear what you're saying, and it could be, and you can see what that model would do, right? If we go down 1%, right?
Right. Okay.
So.
Right. Thanks. I don't think there's an answer, but there's not a solution because it is a market-based return, and we have to look at the long term. So that's kind of a segue into my second question, which is a more general one. About 2 months ago, I showed you and the city council members an article from, I can't remember our magazine that we get. Western Cities, there you go, which talked about long-term financial planning and different models. And you commented more recently that you're working on such a model for Imperial Beach, or that you've started investigating that. Could you sort of just say in a few words what you think about that? Because I, for one, really strongly believe that given that we have limited sources of revenue and ever-growing costs, especially for public safety, that we need to do some long-term financial modeling. We also have ever-growing costs in terms of net pension liability and employee compensation, and we want to do well by our employees. So, what is your thinking right now about either purchasing or developing our own long-range forecasting model that takes into account various scenarios regarding TOT and other revenues, regarding different cost scenarios on the cost side that looks down the road, 5 years, 10 years, something like that, which to me is a better thing to keep in mind when we're doing our 2-year budgeting. How does this fit within our long-range modeling than just doing the 2 years? It's like having your low beams on when you're on a windy road through the forest. You really need the high beams. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, yes. So I'm in complete support of having a little longer term perspective on our budgeting process. And in terms of how I would approach it, I actually have quite a bit of knowledge in modeling. It's been something I've done several times in past life authored papers. So I believe, given now my knowledge of our specific city and the details of it, that I can put together more understanding of the volatility and the fluctuation of all the variables, revenue and expense. And I'll do that. And it won't even have to be the next 2 year. I'll probably come to you at some other time and we'll talk about it. But I thank you for kind of pointing out that article. That really started the process for me. So I just think that it's probably not something we need to go out and spend money on. I think I have the internal tools to do that. And then we can talk in more depth about the variable inputs and the outputs and see what comes of it. Yeah, I will say in general, it's really exciting about this city is the stability you've had in your revenue, believe it or not. Even during the real estate downfall, I looked back on that time to kind of look at your property tax revenue and all that. And a lot of the hit went into the redevelopment agency. They lost a lot, but not the general core. So a lot of stability here, but still, we can build that model.
Great, thank you. So that's something you'll be working on over the next year or so.
Yeah.
Great. The last question is getting back to specifics again. And we've talked about this before, and that is the sewer capital account. And I continue to be a little bit concerned about that because we've been losing there. We need to really do a rate restructuring to bring those balances back up. But in the meantime, before we can do that, it seems as though we're in a and the storms and the storm sewer situation and the incursion situation of salt water into our sewer lines, et cetera, that we've been battling over the years, and Mr. Levine's done a great job with that. It just seems to me that we've got some palpable potential cost risk elements there that can impact the declining fund before we can do something about it. So would you or Mr. Levine need, to me, this is one of the more vulnerable, palpably vulnerable areas of our budget right now. Could you guys, would either one of you like to comment on those prospects and whether you see, in light of the some of these unexpected costs that have surfaced in the past with incursion, which we're going to get maybe more of with king tides and sea level rise and that sort of thing in the not too distant future, storm surge. What is our contingency plan until we can get a rate increase?
Until we get a rate increase, well, I'll have to let Mr. Levine answer some of the specifics, but in general, let me just kind of talk about the sewer fund. Sewer funds are historically difficult to operate and manage. They just, from a financial standpoint, I would much rather, I wish we were talking about a water fund. They're just financially are always much stronger. So we do have, like you see, the $2.3 million. Mr. Levine can talk about the projects that he's working on now. But I think like what your point is, and what if we go hit the $5 million bill, what are we going to do? And that's tough.
One thing I would add is that I believe we're in year 3, could be in year 2, but year 3 of roughly 1.5% increases. But, I believe that the last sewer study indicated that we could raise the sewer rates by about 6%. And rather than do that at one time, the city council spread that out, and we raised these sewer rates about 1.5% a year. So there is some limited growth in revenues, But one of the real challenges we have, and it might be what Doug was trying to say, is the sewer fund is an enterprise fund. It's not part of the general fund. In fact, you can't take general fund monies and put them into the sewer department. The sewer department it has to stand on its own. That's the way that it's set up. So I think that that's the point you're talking about, is it's such a small fund because we're such a small city, and yet the sewer department needs to stand on its own. If you have one of those catastrophic issues, it can really damage the sewer department fund very quickly. So it's important that we maintain these balances that the city council has established. I believe that you have always indicated you want a $2 million minimum balance in the sewer department, and I think it's important that we maintain that.
So let me just follow up real quick too as well. I mean, a backstop is if we do have an immediate issue, we do not have the funds, we would have to issue bonds. You know, I mean, we could do that as an option and bring in money. This fund doesn't have any debt. It would be an easy option for us, and then that would necessitate possibly a rate increase, right? Just to cover the bond costs. But that is, you're asking what's the backstop? That is a backstop.
Did that answer your question? Do we need additional comments so we can just moving on?
It does answer the question, the financial part of the question. I think the real world part of the question has to do with based on past experience when we've had the saltwater incursions, etc. What is Mr. Levine's assessment? I think as part of this, the question is, what is our probability of having a big hit on the sewer fund in light of, you know, the way we see the weather patterns going and the flooding and that sort of thing, the prospects for flooding, I should say.
I don't see that there's a big change in risk from what we've been experiencing in the years that I've been here. I think I've told you we've CCTV'd every main in the city. NV5, our engineer, is now looking at every line that was TV'd and is identifying in a priority list of infiltration points and the quantity that's estimated coming in from that TVing, and the subsequent CIP projects that we have coming down will tackle those infiltration points in a priority context within the budget that we have available to us. I think your infrastructure is in relatively decent shape. Ms. Bragg may remember when back in the 90s when I first got here, we were having a lot of problems, and City Council has been very generous in providing funds to almost all your force mains are new within the last 20 years. We've rebuilt the one sewer lift station that was pump station 9, which was in pretty bad shape, and it's brand new. If anybody's had an opportunity to go down and see that, I'm very proud of what you see there. We are rehabbing pump station 10 right now, and pump station 4 and 6 are in design for being upgraded. So I think we're on track with it, and I don't see that the storms will have a significant impact on the amount of infiltration we have, because we already have it. And I don't think the groundwater is going to make that much more difference from the storms. So I'm fairly confident that we're okay and we're moving in the right direction. And but there is a revenue study that you authorized 2 months ago, something like that, and we've promised to come back in January with a preliminary report on that, get your feedback on the modeling, and hopefully by March you will have the opportunity to establish what the rates will be for the next fiscal year and subsequent 4 years after that. I'm committed to keeping the $2 million in reserve that you set within that enterprise fund, and I'm thinking that we're going to be able to keep moving in that direction. We are I understand that we are not bringing in the revenue at the rate that we are expending it. So the $2 million that we had available for capital is now down to, I think, what did we say, 1.6?
We're at 2.3 right now, 1.6.
Okay, so we need to reverse that. And I think the history of why we aren't bringing in the revenue that we thought we were modeled to do, because we lost the Navy, NOLF. We had some budget adjustments from Metro that when they discovered that there was some Padre Dam, and then the sediment solids plant up in north, and then I'm trying to think of the right word. Anyway, there's two big budget adjustments that are being made through Metro. Unfortunately, in our case, those two generally wash it out. So there's not very much change in our terms of cost versus expenditures in those two, but there is some. So we'll be taking all that into consideration.
Good. Thank you very much. Good. Thank you. Councilmember Patton.
My question was answered, but Mr. Bradley, I'd like to thank you and your staff. Imperial Beach is lucky to have you. Bless you. Lucky to have you.
I thought she was crying.
She's so happy. She's so happy. We're lucky to have you. Thank you for the great job.
I don't see any other names up. It was an excellent presentation. It's a really boring subject, and for me at least. But I'll tell you what, you do a really great job presenting it. I really appreciate that, and I think we're a model for a lot of cities on how to present this information. I appreciate all the great questions. Answered most of my stuff, and I think the modeling is a really good idea, and I think the pension is something we're going to have to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mayor, if I could make one comment, the mayor and council need to make sure that you take some credit for this, and past councils. What Doug mentioned a couple of times and can't be underscored unless you do the business that we do, not having debt in your general fund or in the sewer is really huge at a time like this. So the fact that you've always spent within your means really makes it so that Imperial Beach is as stable as it is. So a lot of that congratulations goes to this council and councils in the past for staying within your means. It's been a smart way to go.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. Thank you for saying that.
And I just think overall, I think we all agree that at the end of the day, you have to make these continual investments and adjustments in your infrastructure. Otherwise, if you wait and you don't do it, then you fall behind. I know from running a nonprofit, the same thing during the recession, we stopped spending money, and then we had to catch up on computers and raises and stuff. So I want to thank this council for also having a really great approach to the budget and being fiscally responsible, but also being responsible in terms of the investments we need to make. So anyway, with that, I would like to entertain a motion for the City Council to receive the FY 2015 audit. All right, please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. 5.3 Annual City Council Representation Assignments for 2016. It says here in my script, discuss your representation assignment selections. I can't remember how we did it last year. Did you want to talk about that? Or
maybe I can just express a little bit about how the process works. And what our ordinance says is pretty simple. It says that the mayor will represent the community in all regional boards unless otherwise determined by the city council. Now, maybe perhaps in the future we should attach some criteria to that or whatnot, but the reality is right now today, the mayor represents the city unless otherwise determined by the city council. Now, in reality, the mayor is way too busy, as are any of you, to represent the city in all of this. And so what you have before you is a recommendation from the mayor of, rather than him representing the city at all the regional boards, his recommendation is to have each of you represent the city as recommended by the mayor in the staff report. So again, there's a lot going on. This city has a lot of important partners that we work with. And when we talk about these boards and commissions, whether it's the League of California Cities or SANDAG or, some of the military working group, the borders working group, water quality, all these things are very important, and Imperial Beach needs to make sure that we have solid representation. And we do. We have a great council, and all of you are willing to get involved, and we at least as staff really appreciate that.
Good, thank you. Do we have public comment?
Yes.
Sorry, City Attorney Lyon, did you want to make a
I just
comment?
wanted to make one statement. There's because the council members are voting to appoint themselves to commissions, and you get, some of them have a stipend involved. There is under the conflict of interest regulations, if the city clerk or if the city posts a Form 806 on the city's website, which identify the positions, the times they meet, and the potential monthly stipend, then the council members are allowed to remain on the dais and vote and discuss the appointments, even though it may involve themselves. So the city clerk did post that Form 806 on the city's website, as well as the proposed appointments were in the agenda packet that was posted last week. Thank you.
I was asked to tell you that.
Great. And we have one speaker, Mark West from Surfrider San Diego.
Good evening. I just want you to know that I am not here doing a stormtrooper impersonation. I did break my neck, unfortunately, but yes, I am much better. Don't sweat it. I'm on the road to recovery. But good evening, Mayor, distinguished council members, Mr. City Manager. It's always a pleasure to see everybody, and I thank you very much for giving me the time to speak. Like I said, my name is Mark West. I am the chair of Surfrider San Diego. I'm here to discuss the local appointment of SANDAG. We at Surfrider San Diego are very, we are wholeheartedly supporting Mayor Dedina is that position at SANDAG, and here's the reason why. SANDAG has a multiple initiatives that are actually affecting us. Our mission is the protection of the oceanways and beaches, and SANDAG affects that in many ways through their border initiative, their transportation initiatives, and also a lot of other things that they're doing. So we want to make sure that we have the right person in there. According to our My Surfrider San Diego policy, people who attend those meetings either in person or view it online, it is their opinion that we believe that SANDAG has been unrepresented over the last year. Imperial Beach has. Councilmember Patton, you've been there, and we've noticed through our records that you have participated in the majority of events, but I think Councilmember Bill Bray, you were the secondary. We were not representative in 4 meetings this year, so that's not terrible. Lord knows there's other cities who do much worse than that, but when you have a primary and alternate, we want to make sure that we're trying to be in the 1 to 2 range. It makes us much more effective. We are a small city here in San Diego, Imperial Beach. We want to make sure that we have a large voice in SANDAG. We want to see someone who is well-versed in the community and well-respected throughout, and is a leader throughout the community, and we believe that Mayor Dedina is that. The majority, not all the members of SANDAG, the majority are mayors, and we have found in our previous experience that when SANDAG is represented by the mayor of the city, it seems to be better. So it is our opinion that Mayor Dedina has the best interest of Imperial Beach, and we'd like to see him on the SANDAG mayor. I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And this is my first time speaking since my accident. It's been a little nerve-wracking for me to get out and do this. It's been a little hard on me, but I hope you guys have a happy holidays. And if you have any questions,
Thank you, Mr. West. I think we're good. All right. Okay, City Council discussion. I don't see any names. Okay, we're okay? We move forward? Okay.
I understand. Mr. Hall, can you tell us what meetings myself or Mr. Patton missed at SANDAG?
I do. I could go in my office, and I did ask for the attendance of all the SANDAG meetings. I can go in my office and print that if you'd like me to. I do have that available.
Do you by any chance know which ones we missed? Okay. Well, either way, yeah, I mean, it's been broken up, but yes, most of the mayor or most of the members of Sandag are mayors of Imperial Beach, but most of the mayors just have served on the council for a couple of years. I'm not confident in giving a junior member the Sandag appointment just yet. Maybe after one more year, Mr. Dedina, but I do thank you for the JPA appointment. I have wanted that appointment for since I've been on this council. But if Mr. Patton can make the meetings, I would move that he stays on as primary and move Mayor Dedina up to first alternate
Or
for Sandag. If you can make those meetings.
I cannot make those meetings.
Okay. Then I move that we adopt exactly what we have now. As we'll go with that.
You mean this?
We'll adopt the city staff recommendations.
I'll second it.
You want discussion? Okay.
Thank you, all of my colleagues, for looking at this and in your secret heart of hearts, wondering, and I would like to ask you, Mayor, you went through this. What was going through your mind when you selected certain people to be on certain positions? Important to me to know why.
Yeah, I think there was the idea was to change some of the meetings so people had an opportunity to serve on different groups, and reflecting some of their interests. And do you want me to address the Sandag? Since that seems to be the point of contention that was last year.
Let's be really honest. Everybody wants to be on Sandag, and I don't know why.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't get elected to go to meetings, but I sit on the Sandag Borders Committee. I've been asked by mayors around the city, around the county, just stating their concern that Imperial Beach doesn't seem to be represented strongly on Sandag. I have a long history of working with agencies, raising money, identifying priorities, working at a very large scale. I've worked with Sandag for a long time in my capacity as a nonprofit director, and so I feel like it's important to have a strong voice, and especially for South County, and to really work with Mary Salas and Ron Morrison and Coronado on really making sure we get funding allocated for South County. I think it's very important, and that's the reason that recommendation was made. And I think it's consistent with Sandag policy. I think it's consistent with the history of Imperial Beach. So
I appreciate that. I certainly wasn't looking for a resume.
Okay. It seems to be that's
not what I was looking for. What I was looking for, and I think where the genesis of this started was last year, and that we were asking ourselves and we were asking each other, we were almost giving ourselves a report card. How did we do at the organizations or the levels that we're representing Imperial Beach? Are we reporting back? Are we, to say, oh, I'm on Sandag and I went to a meeting is fine, but what we want to hear is I was at a meeting and this is what was discussed, and because of my conversation with Caltrans, things seems to get better. To me, that carries a lot of weight. I think our focus, and one of the things that we really were talking about last year, was that we have to have a relentless focus and a unified front from us, our elected ourselves, that when we're out representing Imperial Beach, that we can strategically place ourselves to get the most input and the most reaction from the rest of the county. So with representation like at Borders, and these other, and our relationships that we're building, like with Mary Salas and Ron Morrison, that's where we will see progress. That's what's going to help us to get further down the road. Because we all know, divided, however that saying goes, yeah, or no, how is it? I had it in my head.
United we stand, divided we fall.
United we stand, divided we fall. And that's one of the approaches that we're taking at MTS as well. And yeah, we don't have a trolley line that comes through Imperial Beach, but we certainly do have a blue line that represents hundreds of thousands of riders in the South Bay. One of the advocacies that came out of the California League of Cities, though, was that when you appoint one of your team to a position on a board or a commission, that you leave them there and you don't change every year, and that through growth, and experience, that those relationships are fostered and flourish. So that may be something we want to look at in the future, is that some of these appointments may not be a one-year appointment. Maybe they would be a 2-year appointment. Because like with my appointment right now at MTS, I'm on the executive committee. I thought it was only 1 year, but it's 2 years. So they too see the wisdom in, you get somebody in there and they just dig in. Because quite honestly, 1 year, 12 meetings, it's hard to get something done. Some of the things that have happened, and I go to SANDAG meetings. I'm on the transportation committee, but I'm appointed there through MTS. It's wonderful to see something come to fruition, quite honestly. So just some. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on these appointments.
Great.
Thank you.
Did we have another? Or?
Yeah, I want to talk.
Sure.
So, yeah, I recall missing one meeting, and I'd like to see anybody up here who says they haven't missed a meeting. Number one. Number two, saying I don't represent the city. You hear people hearsay. Somebody from Surfrider said it. That's hearsay. That's very subjective, and it's wrong. Because I was at every meeting, and when I was there, except the one, we have Chairman Jack Dale, Supervisor Ron Roberts, Bill Horn, Kevin Faulkner. I walk in that room, Todd Gloria. I know these people by name. They know me by name. And I have a good relationship there, and I was rather shocked not to see my name still on SANDAG, and very disappointed in you for grabbing that. And basically listening to you telling me I'm not doing my job. And you can smile all you want, but I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in my mayor. Life will go on. I will go on. But I really enjoyed that role. You walk into that room. It was this fantastic boardroom. It was amazing, and I'm gonna miss it. And but I did do my job, and I do not want to hear anybody say I did not do my job.
Okay.
And if you hear somebody say that, stick up for me. Thank you.
Great. Are we gonna vote? We had a second. We had a motion. We had a second.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried by the following votes. Ayes, Dedina, Bilbray, Spriggs, Bragg, Noes, Patton.
Great. Thank you. Adjourn the regular meeting. Thank you.